Morning, everybody. The Simple Handicap for Thursday, September 12th. Thank you for making me a part of your morning. NFL Week 2 kicks off tonight with the Buffalo Bills on the road at the Miami Dolphins. And that is exactly where we are going to kick off the market rundown for this Thursday. Current price this morning, the Miami Dolphins minus 2.5-point favorites. We're seeing Chris up to minus 115. We're seeing BetOnline 2 minus 20. Everywhere else, somewhere in between. Total in this game has been holding steady for the last about 36 to 48 hours as we're locked in at 38.5, shaded towards the over. Yesterday on the preview live stream, which is available here on the YouTube channel, or if you're listening on Apple or Spotify in the podcast feed, I talked about how I like Miami in this game, and anything less than a touchdown, just feel like there's not quite everything right in the Buffalo Bills defense. I think the Dolphins were uncharacteristically sloppy in that debut against Jacksonville. We see that right itself. We see them take advantage of the Bills' defense and potentially a Miami win and cover in this spot. So I do like the number currently where it is sitting at as we got a better effort out of Miami. We know Raheem Mostert is not going to play. An outside chance tonight that we get Devon Achane in the lineup. His status is going to be a game-time decision, so we'll probably find that out right at the inactive wire down late towards kickoff. And yesterday there was some hints that he was moving around better than expected at practice, so chance we see him on the field tonight. That would be a little bit of a bonus to this line. As I was looking at that yesterday on the preview, under the anticipation that there's a better chance that he misses rather than he plays, but we'll get that confirmation later this afternoon. Moving on to Sunday. Yesterday was a day of interesting moves in the market. A lot of buybacks against a lot of big adjustments, and now we're just kind of stuck in between with 5 or 6 of these games, and I'll point them out as we go. And this was certainly one of them to start. Las Vegas on the road at the Baltimore Ravens. This number opened Baltimore minus 8, got as high as Baltimore minus 10. Serious Raiders money comes into the market. 10s were taken out, 9s were taken out. We are now down to a flat 8 at Circa this morning, 8.5 at FanDuel as well as Pinnacle. Chris, 9 minus 105, but we know 9 carries very little weight in the NFL. Total 43.5 at open, down to 41.5. Not much movement there. What made this a little bit surprising to me is seeing that the Raiders have 3 offensive linemen on the injury report yesterday as non-participant or limited participants in practice. Watching the status of those guys, obviously very important going into this matchup against that Ravens defensive front. We'll get more news on those guys today as it's an important practice day for the Las Vegas Raiders and those injured linemen. But as I look at these moves and how they were shaping up yesterday, just a lot of guys potentially playing into regression on the numbers that have been adjusted up since the look ahead overreactions week 1 to 2. Interesting positions taken, and Wednesday limits, that's a serious move, especially against some of these very popular teams. I'll recap these at the end as we go through. Another one that we saw, the LA Chargers on the road at the Carolina Panthers, opened 3.5, got to 6.5. We saw pro money at 6.5. We are now down to a flat 6 across the screen, with the one exception being FanDuel, which is 5.5 minus 115. The total in this game, 42 at open, now down to 38.5, which is the low point this morning at BetOnline. So Panthers pro money hitting the market after a wave of Monday and Tuesday Charger money. Saints on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas currently a 6-point favorite across the board, with the one exception being Circa Sports out in Las Vegas went to Cowboys minus 5.5. WPH mirroring that number, showing 5.5 as well. Everywhere else 6. Total 44.5, all the way up to 47. The first time we've seen 47 on the board. That hit at Circa. It's also being shown on the board this morning at BetOnline and FanDuel as well. 46.5, shaded towards the 47, showing everywhere else. This was lingering really at 6.5 for the majority of the week. Never touched 7, never threatened getting to 7. There was Saints money that came in yesterday, pulled this number down. This was not one of those that I was referencing in that group of games that got hit with those inflated prices relative to where they had opened. This looks like a position taken on the Saints. One I do not agree with as I'm looking at the Cowboys, and a pretty good matchup on both sides of the football in this game, and the Saints being a little bit overrated coming out of that Panthers performance where they got everything going right their way. Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road at the Detroit Lions. Detroit opened 6.5, and this was pretty telling to me as they're now out to 7.5-point favorites. Total in this game, 51.5. Again, we're watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. News coming out of the defensive backfield. Major key practice day to watch. as we get the injury report later this morning out of Tampa Bay. Potential for 4 defensive backs to miss. You're also watching for Cansey up on the defensive line. Key injuries all over the place for the Buccaneers defense. It's going to make a big difference against this Lions offense. I'm a little bit surprised not to see this total, even with the injuries, come down a little bit. I do like the under in this game, as it was lingering at 51.5 when I talked about it on the preview show yesterday. We're still seeing that this morning at Chris. We're seeing that at Circa and Buckeye as well. Lots of numbers. We're making this in the mid-40s. You get a Tampa Bay offensive upgrade after week 1. You have the injuries in the defensive backfield, but this is still what feels to be a monster total for a Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield head-to-head matchup. Indianapolis on the road at the Green Bay Packers. Some Packers money continued to trickle into the market yesterday. A lot of the 3 flats were taken out. We're at 3 even money for the Colts at Circa, 3 minus 102 at Chris, 3 minus 105 at Bet Online this morning. Total from 47 on the look ahead down to a current price of 41. Juju Brents, the best starting cornerback for the Indianapolis Colts, ruled out for the remainder of the season yesterday. That's a big blow to the defensive backfield. Still don't know the status of Josh Downs. He did return to practice, but how healthy he could be is still a big question mark. Matt LaFleur came out and made the quarterback situation, I think, sound a lot better than the reality might be. He said that Jordan Love would not need to practice throughout the week in order to be able to play on Sunday. We saw the Packers not sign Ryan Tannehill. I thought on the preview as I broke down that was potentially a sign that Jordan Love was a little bit healthier than expected. I don't think anybody anticipated there was a chance that Love could play this week. LaFleur may be playing a little bit of disguise and mind games there, trying to have the Colts' preparation a bit divided between who they're going to get. It would be very surprising to me if Love is out there on the field and this is not Malik Willis. Even so, despite a popular podcast with multiple plays given out on the Colts, we are seeing Packers money come into this market and bring this number down, at least so far this morning. Cleveland on the road at the Jacksonville Jags. Jacksonville, a 3-point favorite from left to right across the screen, showing minus 105 for most spots on the board. Total 44.5 down to 41. Is continuing to get a little bit dicey with the Deshaun Watson situation. I thought the way Kevin Stefanski addressed it in a presser yesterday was just bizarre wording and phrasing for how he wanted to kind of pretend to ignore that. Is there something else now going on behind the scenes? That's getting a little bit weird. We're on tackle watch for the Browns injury report. What are we going to get from Wills and Conklin? Wills was not back at practice yesterday. Conklin was in limited fashion. I would think we get Conklin back, but is he going to be slotted in at left tackle or is he going to go in at right tackle? That is yet to be determined. For the Jag side of things, Tyson Campbell was not placed on IR. I think that could be coming. I would be very surprised if it goes any other way. Perhaps a multi-week injury. Didn't sound promising for him, but we didn't get the official announcement. I would not expect to see him back at practice today, and that would be a big blow for the Jag secondary, but can the Browns take advantage of it? San Francisco on the road at the Minnesota Vikings. 49ers, a 5.5-point favorite across the board at some Vikings money, believe it or not, hits the market yesterday. Over money continues to come in, as this is now out to as high as 46 at Chris, Buckeye, and Bet Online. Interesting move on the over. I thought we might kind of hold in that 45 range for the majority of the week, but there has been a lot of takers on the over so far, buying into what we saw from the Vikings offense last week against the Giants, as well as the 49ers and Purdy's success last season against Brian Flores, where what Flores does best with the blitz just simply didn't work against Purdy. He went 15 for 19 against Flores in this same building a year ago in prime time. Seattle on the road at the New England Patriots. Pro money on Seattle comes out yesterday. We see threes turn into 3.5s. Now 3.5 minus 110 at Buckeye, 3.5 minus 110 at WPH, 3.5 minus 105 at Chris and Circa this morning for the Seattle Seahawks. Total ticked up a half point. This was as low as 38. We're now seeing 38.5 at Chris, 39 at Circa. Big news to watch for Seattle. What is the status of Kenneth Walker? DNP yesterday. Will he be on the field today? Is he going to be able to go for Sunday? We're also keeping an eye on George Fant on that offensive line. Two key pieces to the offensive line and in the offensive backfield that the Seahawks, specifically with Walker, are going to need on the field to have a better chance at winning this game. Walker's going to be a pretty vital part of this game plan with how good that Patriots secondary looked against the Bengals. Jets on the road at the Tennessee Titans. Jets still holding steady at a 3.5-point spread. Total in this game, 40.5 from left to right across the screen. I would be a little bit surprised if there's not some buyback on this over, especially with DeAndre Hopkins being said to have much closer to a full workload, according to head coach Brian Callahan, who came out yesterday in the presser and said that he's going to be ramped up this week. So if you get more Hopkins, we saw that Rodgers looked healthy. It's not the 49ers defense opposing the Jets offense. And if that Jets defense is a little bit worse than we anticipated, this becomes a pretty short number for an Aaron Rodgers, at least healthy Aaron Rodgers, spot in this game. So I would think we get some over money and perhaps some Jets money coming back into the market too, the way that some of these games have been going. New York Giants on the road at the Washington Commanders. Washington down to a 1-point favorite across the board after Giants money comes in from a pro group yesterday, taking out the 2.5s and 2s that were left on the board. A little bit of under money comes into the market. No more 44s. We're at 43.5 from left to right across the screen. LA Rams on the road at Arizona. Cardinals 1-point favorite still across the board. Total in this game, 48.5. The Rams have put 2 offensive linemen on the injured reserve list, along with Puka Nacua. We are waiting to know what happens with the other 2 starters today in the practice report coming out of LA. There's a chance that 4 of the 5 guys the Rams anticipated to be starting offensive linemen will not be active in this game. That practice report for LA is going to be significant right around 11:30, 12 p.m. Pacific. We'll get more hints coming out of reporters covering the Rams out west. Cincinnati on the road at the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's another one of those games that fits into that potential regression angle that is being pushed across the board. This was as high as Kansas City 6.5 after a look ahead of 3.5, and there's Cincinnati money coming into the market. Now down to Kansas City minus 5.5 everywhere across the screen, with the exceptions being Jazz showing 5, WPH showing 4.5 minus 110, potentially a tell of where this is headed. The first initial reaction stream was thinking that 4.5 was potentially a better number here. What makes this surprising to me, though, is lots of bad film review coming out on Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. T. Higgins, his status is not improving. I know there was a clip that went around that was implying that it was day-to-day, but that was kind of misunderstood from the actual quote that was given out from Zach Taylor, who said he's handling the decision day-to-day on T. Higgins and monitoring it, but it does seem like he's doubtful to play in this game. Would not at this point expect Higgins to play, and Cincinnati is still taking money in the market. Pittsburgh on the road at the Denver Broncos. Broncos money hits the board. Talked about 2 different pros and groups that played the Broncos yesterday. There was a trickle more coming in later yesterday. The board kind of recalibrates, and we're seeing Pittsburgh now a 2.5-point favorite across the screen, minus 120 at a couple of sportsbooks. Chris minus 115, not quite hitting the 2.5 flat, but I do think that's coming by later in the morning. Total here still very, very short at 36.5. Chicago on the road at Houston, 3.5 on the look ahead for Houston, got as high as 7, and then Bears money hits the market yesterday at 7. All the 7s wiped out, and we are down to 6 flat. That is a serious move on a Wednesday to go against a team as popular as Houston, and a team in Houston that drew so much pro support on Sunday on game day and had no opposition in the market. Early on this week, Houston takes more money, gets to 7. Someone in the market says, that's too much. 7s get taken out. We are now down to a 6. What makes this more surprising is similar to Cincinnati, is there's injuries for Chicago. Keenan Allen not practicing with a heel injury. Sounds like he might have a chance to be back at practice today. It's a key day for the Chicago Bears in that practice report. But it sounds like Rome Odunze is not going to be able to play in this game, not trending well, dealing with a lower body injury. But there is a decent chance here that both Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze will not be on the field for the Chicago Bears, which would leave them with a wide receiver group, if that is the case, of DJ Moore, DeAndre Carter, Velus Jones Jr., and Tyler Scott. These were guys we were talking about in the Hall of Fame game, getting extra time to play, and they're going to be wide receivers 2, 3, and 4 if Allen and Odunze are both out. and still Chicago is being bet. That's, to me, a little bit telling in the market as we see this get back to a 6. And then Monday Night Football, it's the Atlanta Falcons on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles. Not much to talk about here as we see 6.5 across the board, still holding steady for the Eagles. 47 is the total, but leaning slightly towards the over, -115 at Chris, -111 at Jazz, 47.5 showing at WPH. That'll do it for me this Thursday. Reminder that the preview podcast is available on Apple and Spotify, as well as YouTube. And if you're curious in following extra releases from us over at raspicks.com/NFL, the price has been prorated to $5.95 for the remainder of the season going through the Super Bowl. I think there's a pretty decent chance we see 1 or 2 more releases coming out today or tomorrow. Don't officially quote me on it. Just saying that there's been a lot of back and forth discussion about potentials that we have circled that could go out in the next 12 to 24 hours. Have a fantastic Thursday, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the podcast.